Hello and welcome and namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up over the next 1 hour. India dubs US President Donald Trump's secondary tariffs as unfair and unjust on the day they are enforced. Minister Kirti Vardhan Singh says the economy's strength and resilience will overcome the challenge. Prime Minister Narendra Modi leaves on Thursday for a 2-day visit to Japan, where he'll be part of the India-Japan Annual Summit and other business and tech-related engagements. France, Britain and Germany threaten re-imposition of UN sanctions against Iran after Tehran says return of IAEA nuclear inspectors does not represent a full resumption of cooperation. And Denmark's foreign minister summons top US diplomat in Copenhagen as a report says that American citizens are conducting covert operations in Greenland to promote its secession from Denmark to the US. First up, India remains unbound to US President Donald Trump's tariff onslaught despite its coming into effect from today. Delhi has dubbed the 50% levy on a large portion of its American exports as highly unjustified and unfair. And at the same time, it's leveraging Trump's 50% tariffs as a catalyst for comprehensive economic reforms rather than succumbing to pressure. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is spearheading moves to address growth bottlenecks and boost competitiveness. Fuzail Ahmed reports.
India remains firm in the wake of changing business environment worldwide. Leading from the front, Prime Minister Narendra Modi asserted on Monday that India will stand firm no matter how much pressure comes.
मेरी सरकार लघु उद्यमियों का, किसानों का, पशुपालकों का कभी भी अहित नहीं होने देंगी। दबाव कितना ही क्यों ना आए, हम झेलने की अपनी ताकत बढ़ाते जाएंगे।
Prime Minister's assertion doesn't come without a reason. India's economy is underpinned by robust domestic consumption, driven by a large and expanding middle class. India's robust macroeconomic fundamentals provide a strong foundation to withstand external pressures such as Trump's 50% tariffs on Indian goods.
Economy, under the honorable leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji, has grown to be the 4th largest economy in the world today, and we are very soon going to be the 3rd largest. Our economy is strong, our economy is resilient, and will definitely tide over this temporary disturbance that has come about in terms of tariff impositions.
India's central bank governor Sanjay Malhotra believes financial stability and price stability are vital for sustaining economic growth.
The Indian economy today is characterized by robust macroeconomic fundamentals. We are all set and projected to be the 3rd largest economy in the coming years. This July, we had the lowest inflation at 1.6% headline.
Let's have a look at India's robust macroeconomic fundamentals. India's GDP, driven by over 60% domestic consumption, is projected to grow at 6.5% in FY26 and average 6.8% annually over the next 3 years, making it the fastest growing major economy. S&P Global Ratings upgraded India's sovereign credit rating to BBB from BBB- with a stable outlook. The first upgrade in 18 years, citing strong economic growth, fiscal discipline and effective monetary policy. S&P notes that India's export exposure to the US is only 1% of GDP, ensuring that high tariffs will have a marginal short-term impact without derailing long-term growth prospects. Ongoing reforms in GST, logistics, labor laws and infrastructure investment, 5.5% of GDP, bolster economic resilience and competitiveness, reducing reliance on external markets. SBI research says a proposed two-tier GST structure and lower tax rates on essential goods will enhance compliance and boost consumption by 1.98 lakh crore rupees. India is reducing its trade reliance on the US by diversifying partnerships and pursuing new free trade agreements. More FTAs mean cost advantages and preferential treatment, which can boost both domestic consumption and exports. It has signed an FTA with the UK, is in advanced talks with the EU and Russia led Eurasian Economic Union, and has concluded negotiations with Oman. India is also reviewing its FTA with ASEAN bloc and exploring untapped export potential, with China estimated at $161 billion, particularly in high-tech sectors. Manageable debt levels projected to decline to 78% of GDP by FY29 from 83% in FY25. Strong foreign exchange reserves and a contained current account deficit enhance stability. Inflation remains within the RBI's 2 to 6% target, supported by effective monetary policy.
Our exports are just 20% of Indian economy, and Indian market is very big. It absorbs 80% of Indian production, and there is scope for further absorption of this because Indian economy is growing at 6 to 7% annually. So it can happily absorb some of the shocks in these sectors.
US tariffs of 25% on Indian goods went into force earlier this month, but Trump announced plans to double the rate, citing New Delhi's purchases of Russian oil. New Delhi called the move as unreasonable and unjustified and is taking steps to bolster its economy in other spheres without taking any retaliatory measures. Fuzail Ahmed's report for DD India.
Now, the US economy is feeling the strain as consumer confidence dips and criticism mounts over President Trump's steep tariffs on several countries, including India. From former diplomats to economists, voices across the spectrum warn that these moves risk damaging key alliances, while a majority of Americans oppose Trump's policy.
The US economy is beginning to feel the pinch from its own aggressive trade policies as fallout from tariffs imposed on key partners, including India, starts to manifest. Recent data reveals a clear dip in consumer sentiment, with the Consumer Confidence Index falling 1.3 percentage points in August to 97.4, down from 98.7 the previous month. The Present Situation Index, which gauges how Americans perceive current economic and labor conditions, dropped 1.6 points to 131.2. Meanwhile, the Expectation Index, reflecting future outlooks, fell 1.2 points to 74.8, a level well below the recession indicating threshold of 80. Prominent voices across the US political and economic spectrum are voicing concern. Renowned economist Jeffrey Sachs called the tariffs unjust and likened them to economic coercion. He advised India to deepen engagement with other emerging economies and to consider joining regional trade pacts like RCEP, arguing that US pressure tactics are unlikely to succeed. Former Secretary of State John Kerry echoed these concerns, warning that President Trump's confrontational approach with allies like India could seriously erode decades of trust and cooperation. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton, who served during Trump's first term, blasted the policy as confused, questioning why India faces punitive tariffs while China escapes similar measures. He warned that such actions risk undoing years of strategic US diplomacy aimed at distancing India from Russia and China. Bolton even cautioned that any perception of a pro-China tilt would be a grave mistake. Former US ambassador to the UN labeled the alienation of India a strategic disaster. She urged the Trump administration to rebuild ties with Prime Minister Modi, emphasizing India's role as a democratic ally in countering China's growing influence. Trade experts have also raised alarms. Christopher Padilla, a former US trade official, noted that such punitive economic measures could have lasting consequences. These actions are not easily forgotten, he said, adding that they risk undermining confidence in America's reliability as a long-term partner. With economic indicators showing strain and bipartisan concern mounting, Many American leaders are urging a recalibration of Washington's approach towards India. The message from policymakers, experts, and the public is increasingly clear. Strategic partnerships should not be sacrificed at the altar of short-term pressure tactics. Mohammad Absurul Hassan's report for DD India.
Furthermore, Donald Trump's tariffs could shrink US GDP by 6%, cut wages, raise prices, and hit households hard. But for India, Fitch says the impact will be modest, as exports to the US make up only 2% of the GDP. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya with this report.
United States slammed a 50% tariff on Indian goods, effective from 27th of August. This move, triggered by India's purchase of Russian oil, has put nearly $48 billion worth of export at risk. From textiles and gems to seafood and furniture, Indian exporters are bracing up for a storm. While some sectors like pharma, electronics and automobiles are exempted, the blow to labor-intensive industries is already being felt. But India isn't backing down. Prime Minister Narendra Modi vowed to protect small businesses, farmers and entrepreneurs. So how is India fighting back? First, New Delhi is accelerating efforts to diversify its trade, deepening talks with the European Union, United Arab Emirates, Australia, signing a free trade agreement with UK and even reopening channels with China. Second, by supporting exporters at home with policy shields to soften the impact. And third, by doubling down on self-reliance, reinforcing the Make in India vision. Trump's tariff is expected to have a cascading impact, with researchers warn they will cut US GDP by 6%, reduce wages by 5%, raise prices and cost middle-income households $22,000, stifling growth long-term. On the other hand, according to Fitch ratings, they expect the direct impact on India to be modest, since export to the US accounts for only 2% of the GDP, limiting overall damage from the tariff hike. This isn't just a trade fight, it's a test of resilience, how India adapts, innovates, and rises stronger in a shifting global order. This is Tapas Bhattacharya signing off.
And we'll be talking about this further with an expert guest a little later in the show. Let's also tell you about the global impact. Well, Germany's Factory and Equipment Makers Federation warned on Wednesday the sector is facing an existential crisis after the United States broadened the reach of its metals tariffs. In a letter to European Union President Ursula von der Leyen, the VDMA trade group said the expanded levies have now sent a fresh chill of uncertainty rippling through European industry. The European Union and US President Donald Trump struck a framework deal in late July, under which most EU exports to the United States face a 15% across-the-board tariff rate. They released more details last week, but negotiations are continuing and levies in some areas remain unclear. The VDMA, which represents some 3,600 companies in Europe's biggest economy, said the US move to expand steel and aluminum tariffs took the levies far beyond the 15% level for some products. The German Chamber of Commerce and Industry released a survey Wednesday in which a majority of businesses polled said they believe that the EU-US deal places too great a burden on European economies. Most companies believe the bloc should take a tough stance over the Trump administration in further talks, even if it impacts their own business. Now, France, Britain and Germany remain ready to trigger a so-called snapback of UN sanctions against Iran, a German Foreign Ministry spokesperson said on Wednesday, after the trio of countries met with Iran on Tuesday to try to revive diplomacy over its nuclear program. The spokesperson said a snapback remains an option after talks ended without a conclusive result, but France, Britain and Germany will continue to seek a diplomatic solution. Earlier on Wednesday, Iran said that the return of International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors did not mark the full resumption of cooperation with the UN watchdog adding a final framework is still under discussion. Denmark's foreign minister has summoned the top US diplomat in Copenhagen over intelligence reports alleging covert influence operations by US citizens in Greenland that aim to whip up opposition to Danish rule. That's what the ministry said on Wednesday. The minister did not disclose the identities of the Americans flagged in the intelligence reports. The US Embassy in Copenhagen did not immediately respond to a request for comment either. And still to come in this edition of DD India News Hour. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh warns enemies of strong action if India is provoked. Germany's big move to bolster its military capabilities with a bill to introduce voluntary 6-month military service. And at least 25 people are killed in eastern Afghanistan near capital Kabul in a bus accident. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a phone call from President of Finland, Alexander Stubb. Now, President Stubb has shared his assessment on the recent meetings held between leaders of Europe, United States and Ukraine in Washington on the resolution of the conflict in Ukraine. Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's consistent support for peaceful resolution of the conflict and early restoration of peace and stability. The leaders also reviewed progress in India-Finland bilateral relationship and reaffirmed their commitment to enhance partnership in emerging fields, including quantum technologies, 6G, artificial intelligence, cyber security and sustainability. President Stubb reiterated Finland's support for an early conclusion of a mutually beneficial India-EU free trade agreement. He also affirmed support for the success of the AI Impact Summit to be hosted by India in 2026. Prime Minister extended an invitation to President Stubb to visit India at an early date. The leaders agreed to remain in touch. Now, the next level of investment and trade cooperation will be in focus during Prime Minister Modi's upcoming visit to Japan. The next report looks at the robust partnership between the two economic powerhouses of Asia.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be on a 2-day visit to Japan from 29 to 30th August. In Tokyo, Prime Minister will engage with his Japanese counterpart, Shigeru Ishiba, in the 15th India-Japan Annual Summit. While India and Japan share civilizational ties, economic cooperation forms the bedrock of their modern partnership. Prime Minister's visit is expected to give a new fillip to India-Japan economic relationship, particularly in the domain of trade, investment and cooperation in semiconductors and emerging technologies. The comprehensive economic partnership agreement between the two nations has significantly strengthened the bilateral trade, with over 1,400 Japanese companies operating in India and 11 industrial townships across 8 states hosting Japanese enterprises. Earlier on Wednesday, PM flagged off the e-Vitara, Suzuki's first made-in-India global strategic battery electric vehicle in Gujarat. These vehicles, made in India, will be exported to 100 countries. Expectations are high for Indian and Japanese businesses from Prime Minister Modi's visit.
When both our PMs meet, the key expectation is a roadmap for next generation cooperation, especially in clean energy, digital technology and supply chain security. With global uncertainties, both countries can set a model of democratic economic partnership. Strengthening defense and semiconductor collaboration will also be high on the agenda.
I believe the Japan-India partnership is necessity. Prime Minister Modi's visit will encourage more Japanese firms to collaborate with India.
India offers a young workforce and a large market, which supports Japan's economy. Together, our cooperation brings stability and prosperity.
Japan has been a key ally in India's economic growth. Foreign direct investment from Japan has exceeded $43 billion between 2000 and 2024, making it India's fifth largest source of foreign investment. India-Japan bilateral trade totaled $22.85 billion during financial year 23-24. Exports from Japan to India during this period were $17.69 billion and imports were $5.15 billion. Metro systems in Delhi, Ahmedabad, Bengaluru and Chennai and the upcoming Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail reflect the potential of India-Japan economic partnership. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Japan is expected to open up new exciting avenues of growth and investment. In an era of geopolitical uncertainties and tariff diplomacy, India and Japan show the roadmap for democracies to partner and thrive together. With camera person Shailendra Chauhan, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in Tokyo.
So preparations are clearly on to welcome Prime Minister Modi in Japan. Now, on the day of his arrival, the iconic Sky Tree in Tokyo will be lit in the colors of the Indian tricolour. And there's more there as well. DD India's Shubhendu Ghosh gets more details.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to visit Japan. Preparations have started here in Tokyo to extend a special welcome to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Right now, I'm in the heart of Tokyo in Sumida district. Next to me is the iconic Sky Tree in Japan at over 600 meters. It is the tallest star in Japan and the world. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Tokyo, in a unique honor, the star will be lit in the colors of the tricolour. It's a unique honor rarely extended to a visiting dignitary or a nation. It will bear testimony to close India-Japan friendship when Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives. And now we are at the top of the observation deck of Sky Tree in Tokyo, about 450 meters high from the ground. From here you get a bird's eye view of the Tokyo city. You see the skyscrapers, you see the Sumida River, the seaport and much more. This is also a place where a special yoga session will be organized when Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits Tokyo. It was Prime Minister Modi's vision to make yoga a global phenomena with International Day of Yoga. And at this height of 400 meters, yoga is going to be literally at the top of the world. These special experiences are sure to make Prime Minister Modi's visit to Japan a memorable one. With camera person Shailendra Chauhan, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in Tokyo.
And the PM is visiting Japan on the 29th as well as the 30th of August. India and Japan are close economic and strategic partners. DD India's Shubhendu Ghosh has spoken with the Indian ambassador to Japan, C.V. George, on the significance of the PM's visit.
India's ambassador to Japan, Ambassador C.B. George. Welcome to DD India, sir. What will be Prime Minister Modi's key engagements during this visit?
Thank you very much. When you look at India-Japan relationship, we have excellent relationship. We have a civilizational connect, we have a cultural connect. You go in this country, any part of the country, you will see that there is an India connect. And based on that solid foundation is that we have built our relationship. So, in this annual summit, what is it special? We have seen significant progress in our relationship in the last 10, 11 years in that relationship. It is special. It is strategic, it is global, and it is a real partnership. We have seen progress. So the leadership will review that progress and, of course, give a new roadmap to take that relationship to further higher levels.
There's a lot of excitement around the bullet train project that is taking shape in India with support from Japan. What can we expect? Will that also be the focus of conversations between the leaders?
See, there are several elements in this relationship. As I mentioned, economic partnership is a very important part of our engagement. And there are other elements which have been building our relationship, infrastructure projects. So many Japanese companies have participated in various infrastructure projects in India. One of such projects is our MAHSR project. And we are making progress in that project. In 2027, we will have a train running on the Ahmedabad-Mumbai project.
Emerging technologies, semiconductor manufacturing and the supply chain is another focus area. Can we expect some progress in that domain as well in this visit?
See, when you look at our relationship, it is a quite comprehensive, very broad relationship, which involves several aspects. One, our traditional business engagement. There are other major elements in our relationship: semiconductors, quantum computing, critical technology, drones, robotics, space. There are so many areas where we are cooperating at every level. Semiconductor is a very important area. India is making so much progress and investment in that area, and Japan is also doing it.
We understand they're also part of the Quad grouping. Although this is a bilateral visit, in strategic defense and developments, what could be the areas in focus?
We have seen that India and Japan have been working very closely in various plurilateral mechanisms. They both are members of G20. We participate, we actively engage in various plurilateral mechanisms, and one of that is Quad. And Quad is very important because four like-minded countries have come together with a common vision for peace, stability, security, and prosperity in the region, and with concrete ideas. So we are making progress in that. And of course, these are the plurilateral engagement will also continue to be part of our engagement between India and Japan.
That was India's ambassador to Japan talking about Prime Minister's upcoming visit to Tokyo and the manner in which it will provide fresh momentum to the ties between India and Japan. With Team DD India, Shubhendu Ghosh in Tokyo, Japan.
So a lot of anticipation building up for Prime Minister Modi's visit to Japan. Now, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has asserted that India has never initiated aggression against anyone, but if challenged, India would respond strongly. He was addressing the plenary session at the two-day tri-service dialogue on war, warfare and war fighting called Ran Samvad 2025 in Madhya Pradesh. Ran Samvad 2025 aims to enhance interaction, communication and cooperation among military communities on issues critical to war fighting. Emphasizing on the meaning of the event's name, the minister said Run invokes the sense of battle and conflict, whereas Samvad refers to dialogue and discussion.
India has never been a nation that seeks war. We have never initiated aggression against anyone. However, the present geopolitical reality is quite different. Even though we do not harbor any aggressive intent, if someone challenges us, it becomes imperative that we respond with strength. To do so, we must continuously enhance our defense preparedness. This is why training, technological advancement, and a sustained dialogue with partners are of utmost importance for us.
Now, Germany is taking a decisive step to strengthen its defense. On Wednesday, the cabinet approved a draft bill introducing a voluntary 6-month military service aimed at bolstering national security amid concerns over Russia. The plan is designed to double the pool of trained reservists, currently about 100,000, and to encourage some volunteers to transition into active service. Significantly, the draft also leaves the door open to a possible return of compulsory enlistment, a policy Germany abandoned back in 2011. For years, Berlin has struggled to meet troop targets. With this move, it signals a sharper focus on readiness and deterrence in a rapidly shifting security environment.
This growth must not be compromised It is therefore clear that we have a mechanism in the law which states that if the numbers fall, if they are not sufficient to fill the increasing capacities that we will be building up in the coming years, and if this means that the target of 200,000 is in danger of not being achieved, then we will have to set the mechanism in motion. The cabinet will have to decide, and then there will have to be a parliamentary resolution. However, this is also necessary. I want to emphasize this again, because conscription was also repealed by law at the time. So a corresponding equivalent is needed for it to be reinstated.
At least 25 people have been killed and 27 others injured when a bus overturned in eastern Afghanistan on Wednesday. The crash took place due to the driver's negligence, that's what's being said, on a highway near the capital Kabul, leading to the southern city of Kandahar. Interior Ministry spokesperson Abdul Mateen Khani said 25 people have been killed and 27 others are being treated at hospitals for injuries. Last Tuesday, 78 people, including more than a dozen children, were killed in western Herat province when a bus carrying migrants returning from Iran collided with a motorcycle and a truck, according to authorities. Oman will roll out its updated Golden Visa program on the 31st of August as part of efforts to strengthen its position as a global investment hub. Announced by the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Investment Promotion, the updated program offers renewable residency permits of 5 to 10 years for foreign investors, entrepreneurs, retirees and skilled professionals, allowing them and their families to live, work and study in Oman without a local sponsor. Complementing the visa scheme, Oman is also launching the Al Majid Company's initiative to help high-performing Omani firms expand domestically and internationally. And still to come on DD India News Hour, we'll be joined by our expert guest to talk about Donald Trump's tariff challenge for India and how it can be best combated.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy, and let's now return to our top story, which is about how Donald Trump's secondary tariffs have come into effect in India, and at the same time, India is, of course, getting everything in place to ensure that it doesn't have any kind of a negative impact on India's exports to the US, and if there is an impact, it's kept at the minimum, and at the same time, India finds new markets, finds new economic partnerships, FTAs as well, are finalized to ensure that if there's any shortfall, it can be met through alternative measures. Also, by boosting domestic consumption as well, bolstering domestic industries, relying on the ability of Indians and India's capabilities, all about self-reliance as well. We have Professor Manoj Pant with us. He's a well-known economist and former director IIFT. That's the International Institute of Foreign Trade. Welcome, Professor Pant. What do you make of this step that Donald Trump has brought into effect? He'd been threatening it. We thought that at the 11th hour something could be worked out, but it became clear over the course of the last, 2 weeks really, that nothing of that sort seems to be working out at the moment. And now we're in a situation where a lot is being talked about how there might be a shortfall in the short term in India's exports, but then efforts are being mounted to ensure that that is not a long-term picture.
Okay, first of all, it is only the media which thought last minute there's something going to happen. It's not just about Trump, although India is a very specific issue. If you look at what James Greer has been writing, Jameson Greer, who's the trade representative, and if you look at what his economic advisor Peter Navarro has been saying since beginning of August, this Trump tariff policy, right is or wrong is not the issue, completely ridiculous economics is there to stay. So first thing I can tell you, this 25% tariff and the 25% penalty is here to stay, it's not going to go. It has been very clearly made by Navarro that he needs some scapegoat for the Russian policy, why his Russian policy is failing, and he's also upset because he cannot say that he was the one who mediated on India-US, ending the India-Pakistan war. Now, having said that, so that's here to stay. Be ready that at least for the next 1 year, traders are going to face this higher tariff of 25% on top of the earlier tariff. So remember, this is not just a new 25% tariff and 25% penalty. The 125 is the additional tariff, then the 25% which is sanctions penalty. So this 50% additional to whatever tariffs there were before January 19. So let me give you an example. Let's say something like shirts, which India has made enormous inroads in the American market with retailers like Banana Republic and so on. The tariff now facing them will be close to over 60%. No industry in the world can compete with competitors at a 60% tariff. So as far as I'm concerned, for those who are affected, not all commodities are, let's say textiles, apparel and textiles, then you have, of course, gems and jewelry, you have leather goods like shoes. As far as they are concerned, this season is over now. They've already done their sales. That's why we had this huge jump in Indian exports last 3 months. But they've already made their sales for this year. What to do for next summer, that's the issue that comes. As far as we're concerned, it's all over this year. That's one. Some sectors, so as I can tell you, if these tariffs are not going to go away this year, they're not going to go away next year, at least if the present trend in American policy is continued. Now, whether the penalty will be withdrawn, that is a sanction of 25% next year, will depend really on how we work out things elsewhere. But the tariffs are a huge hit. Please don't underestimate the effect. You can call them bad, good, whatever. They are enormous. Some of these sectors, like textiles, in some cases, the exposure to the US market is as much as 50 to 60% of the exports. So think of 60 or 50, 60% of their trade, of the exports are now facing a 60 plus % additional tariff.
Yes, and these are labor-intensive sectors, not just textiles.
Not a small thing, yes.
But also gems and jewelry, as well as even shrimp.
To worry about quite seriously, yes.
Yes. Now, we are putting things in place. There are already, we have certain FCAs which can be leveraged to the max further, and the government is already engaged in multiple levels of talks with, as big economies as the European Union, but others too, to get other FTAs in place as well. Do you think that we can expect rapid progress on these fronts because of what's happened with the US?
You see, this is not something entirely in the government of India's control. They can do what they can to limit the impact. The impact will be severe, and I'll tell you what will happen. In the near future, let's say next 1 year, it's unlikely that we'll quickly be able to shift all the sales to other countries. Establishing suppliers, establishing a chain in the establishing retail chain takes time, doesn't happen overnight. I'll tell you what will happen. The bigger producers in most of the areas, particularly textiles and leather goods, will shift their production to many of the other countries because they already have links. They will probably get away by shifting to either Vietnam or Bangladesh or wherever. But it's the small producers who's linked to them in the Indian economy. He's the one you need to worry about at the moment. So at the short run policy, in the long run, is what do I do about the MSMEs? And I can suggest one thing. Government giving a direct subsidy is not a great idea. It will apply to all exports, and then you'll run into problems in the EU and UK, which will say this is unjustified under WTO. EU, UK and us still believe that the WTO exists. So you'll be hauled up for giving unfair export subsidy. I would suggest governments can take some hit on their tax revenue. And I would suggest, from my point of view, government knows better.
But the Prime Minister has already promised that. He's talked about a Diwali bonanza, and he's talked about GST 2.0, next generation GST reforms.
I'm saying shift tariffs, shift textile for the moment to the lowest bucket, which is 5%. And then don't get fooled by the bureaucrat and say, oh my God, what about luxury textiles? Luxury textiles have an even greater impact on MSMEs than the others do. Because they have larger margins, so they can pay more.
A lot of them come in the cottage industries. If you talk about silk, it's under cottage industry.
But, so don't say silk by one company is okay, but if silk is being sold for marriages, this is a very stupid way of doing tariffs, taxes. So let the government thinking change a bit. Let them realize that in the next budget, they have to do specific, even if they can limit the losses to 50%. Which is not this year, because I told you, this year the companies have already made their sales for the coming winter year. This is so that the companies continue to prepare for next year, because they all start preparing now for next year's sales, and they are finished. If they are going to face a 50%, 25% tariff and 50%, 25% penalty, they might as well forget about the US market, which in the short run they cannot. So that's the first thing in the government. I would suggest take some hit on your indirect taxes. You have to get the states on board. The states must be willing, because they are where the people are.
And the government has also been reducing direct taxes as well. We're talking about a new income tax bill too, which is on the anvil now. So do you feel that
it's a different issue?
Increasing purchasing power could also be something?
But that's not going to suddenly increase. Remember, these items which are being sold in the US markets are priced far out of the Indian market. Okay. That's up to the producers to figure out how much cut they can take. But let me give you a small example. An Indian shirt selling, let's say, in one of the biggest retailers in the US, that is called Banana Republic, a t-shirt can sell for about between $40 to $60 each season, which is huge, right?
Yes.
But the margin for the Indian producer to be all fair is only maybe 15%. Now, can he be willing to work with, let's say, a 5% margin and bring the price down the India market? That's what we have to see. That will determine, and I believe they will do it. So, can they come forward with reducing their margins? Can they then try to sell the Indian market and be prepared to shift to other markets? That's the second phase. How quickly can we line up these FTAs? But remember the danger there. If you approach these FTAs with the EU and, I won't mention China at the moment, which is very important though, EU and UK, if you approach them right now on the ground, that look what's happened to the US, they will haul you the coal. They are not great friends either.
Yes.
They will extract their pound of flesh.
Yes.
So be clear that you are not doing this on rebound. Do it as you would normally do. My own feeling is all these countries need you for a simple reason. You have something which people often forget. And not just market, people.
Yes.
Think about this way. Who consumes? Only an individual. All that happens at the moment, the individual does the income. You can always give income to people, right? But you can't create people. If there's no one to consume, who will consume? So they will ultimately come to you. They will bring technology to you. Let them bring the technology to you, but don't make it feel as if you're going to.
It's a compulsion for the US to do that as well. Let's talk about the flip side as well. Do you see a situation where it will become a compulsion for Donald Trump in a few months or maybe a year till the midterms perhaps, that he's forced to relook at his broader tariffs policy and not just secondary tariffs?
Not India. As far as concerned, he couldn't care less. India tariff is symbolic. It shows them, look, see what I'm doing against Ukraine. I'm taking action, and frankly, we have been blamed too by saying what a great, powerful country we are. We're not that powerful in terms of economics. Unfortunately, geopolitics today is about economics, not politics. So we are not going to make a difference to him. But within the US, I was there last month for some time, a lot of impacts are happening. Consumer goods are going up. Chicken from Mexico, pork from somewhere. This is what people understand, his own consumers understand. We have got to raise.
He slapped high tariffs on Brazil as well. Most of the beef comes from there. It's the highest exporter of beef in the world.
But let me tell you, he will create exceptions. He's a smart guy. So I am saying we must fight the battle with Trump inside India, not in India. No point telling government, what can the government of India do? Why did the government of India do this madness? Is there anything we did except buy oil which they told us to buy? And if India today withdraws from the Russian oil, I hope they don't. unless it makes sense economics-wise, then the world oil market will crash and we'll be in trouble. The prices will double.
Yes.
So it's stupid. Indians should stick to their policy, but not think. I can suggest one thing, which is a very useful thing. I don't know, sure people have thought about it. We have run huge ruble surplus in the rupee ruble trade. The Russians have a lot of rupee surplus with them because we have a trade deficit with the Russians because we buy so much oil from them. Why not convince our companies to look for markets in Russia?
Okay.
They spend rupees, which there's nothing they can do otherwise. They can't use the rupee to buy things of UAE, right?
True.
Why not look at Russia as a possible market, at least in the short run, to be able to use up the rupee funds that are lying unused by the Russians?
Well, let's see what happens in Tianjin, where I'm sure the leaders will meet both
They are in
President
more
Putin
serious
and
trouble than we are, by the way. They are more serious trouble than we are.
Yes, let's see what happens. Thank you, sir, for joining us and talking about this current situation. Lots to still unfold in the future, so we'll be tracking that closely perhaps later on as well. Thank you. Now, what's happened right now is US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has expressed optimism that the United States and India can resolve their ongoing tariff disputes and reach a mutually beneficial agreement. He's emphasized that the relationship between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump remains strong, which could pave the way for productive discussions and closer economic ties between the two nations.
This is a very complicated relationship. President Trump and Prime Minister Modi have very good relationships at that level. And it's not just over the Russian oil. The Indians came in very early after Liberation Day to start negotiating on tariffs, and we still don't have a deal. I thought that we would have a deal in May, June. I thought India could be one of the earlier deals. And they've kind of tapped us along in terms of the negotiations. And then there is also the aspect of the Russian crude purchases, which they've been profiteering on. So there are many levels going on here. I do think India is the world's largest democracy. The U.S. is the world's largest economy. I think at the end of the day, we will come together. I think a lot.
With DD India's Saurabh Shukla joining us from Washington, D.C. Well, good morning to you, Saurabh, there in D.C. Now, where did this come from, really? Is Scott Bessent being clairvoyant, or is there more to it than he's actually expressed?
You know, I see this as a very positive statement, Gautam, because Scott Bessent is not only the Treasury Secretary, he's also a close confidant of the US President Donald Trump. And I can tell you from sources here that this statement hasn't come without a context. The context is that there is a realization in Washington, D.C. that India is a strong friend and a partner of the United States, and President Trump attaches high importance to his relationship with Prime Minister Modi. And what he is trying to say is that they will iron out any differences whatsoever, and he is hopeful that something positive will come out. I see this as a positive development. I know a lot of naysayers, anti-India forces are trying very hard to paint this as the really gloomy phase of the partnership. But I think, as I've said earlier on your shows, that I was there not only in February when Prime Minister Modi met President Trump inside the Oval Office, but earlier too at his interactions with the UN when he was the president last time around. The chemistry between the two leaders is very strong. In fact, that stays intact. If you see President Trump's statement all along, he has been praising Prime Minister Modi, and I think that is very important in his scheme of things. So anybody should understand that in the Trump White House, what prevails is President Trump's word. And when he has a relationship that's as strong with the global leaders, yes, there may be slight hiccups. He uses tariffs as a bargaining chip, but I get a sense that the relationship can not only bounce back, but we can repair the little bit of hiccups that are there, and hopefully these tariffs can go away.
By when do you think we can see movement in that direction? Because right now things are suspended, no talks are happening, at least on the trade front. 2+2 happened. We've had an American envoy's name being announced. We don't know yet when will he really land in Delhi, but and Donald Trump himself is expected to land in Delhi later on in the year for the Quad Summit. But do you think that these are critical junctures that might really tell us in the coming weeks and months as to where the relationship, the broad relationship, and especially the trade relationship between India and the US is going to go?
Gautam, I've covered this partnership for almost more than 2 decades, and I can tell you these are very positive signs. He wouldn't have named Sergio Gore, who's again a very, very key personnel, was a key personnel in White House as ambassador, US ambassador designate to India. He wouldn't have had these 2+2 dialogues happening if there was really, really a dip. I see this along with the statement coming from Scott Bessent as a good step forward. Yes, I will not hazard a guess on how long it's going to take for the trade deal, but I can tell you from informed sources that certainly there is a positive momentum which is happening behind the scenes, and let it be like that, because I believe that these are delicate diplomatic negotiations in the larger national interest of India and also in the larger interest of this great partnership that we have between our 2 countries, India and the US. We should let these, back channel negotiations, whatever negotiations are happening, let it be, and the outcome will be seen. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, there are temporary setbacks. We will not cross the red lines, but as good friends, we continue to agree on certain things and disagree on certain things. The idea is, how can we come forward and, come to a meeting point, which I think is plausible and can also be, possible in the near term, Gautam. That's my optimism stemming from, experience in covering this relationship and also from sources here in Washington, D.C.
Okay, sounds great. Let's leave it at that, Saurabh, while also saying that the Trump administration, perhaps Donald Trump himself, will be very keenly watching as to what really happens in Tianjin as well. Thanks for joining us from Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
Now, 3 people have been killed and many are feared to be injured following a school shooting in Minneapolis in the US. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has said that the attack took place at the Annunciation Catholic School, and he called it a horrific act of violence. US President Trump has also posted on social media that he was monitoring a shooting situation in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and that the FBI was on the scene. Meanwhile, authorities have confirmed that there is no active threat in the area now and the gunman is dead. The shooting reportedly took place during a school-wide Catholic Mass for students in kindergarten to the 8th grade. Now, a tragic case out of California in the US has reignited global concerns about artificial intelligence and its safety. Family of a 16-year-old boy who died by suicide after months of conversations with ChatGPT has filed a lawsuit against OpenAI and its chief executive, Sam Altman. The lawsuit claims the chatbot's design features intentionally fostered mental dependence instead of steering the teenager towards help. In response, OpenAI has admitted its systems can fall short in such situations and pledged to install stronger guardrails around sensitive content, particularly for under 18 users. The San Francisco-based company has also promised new parental controls. Members of the Venice Film Festival jury boarded a boat at the Venice Lido on Wednesday, heading to a press conference on the festival's opening day. The jury, chaired by American filmmaker Alexander Payne, includes 2 actors and 5 directors from around the world. They'll decide the winner from 21 films in the main competition. Payne departed from the Excelsior Hotel pier alongside Brazilian actor Fernanda Torres, Chinese actor Zhao Dao, Iranian director Mohammad Rasulov, French director Stéphane Brizze, and Italian director Maura Del Pero, as well as Romanian Palme d'Or winner Cristian Munguia. This year's lineup features several high-profile entries competing for the Golden Lion, including Noah Baumbach's J. Kelly starring George Clooney, Yorgos Lanthimos' Begonia with Emma Stone, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, Catherine Bigelow's House of Dynamite, and The Smashing Machine starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Italian director Paolo Sorrentino's La Grazia opens the festival, while The Voice of Hind Rajab adds a powerful political dimension to the competition. And the festival of Ganesh Chaturthi is being celebrated from today, marking the birth of Lord Ganesh, the remover of obstacles and the god of wisdom and prosperity. Special celebrations are taking place in Mumbai, with hundreds of thousands of devotees thronging the iconic Lal Bagh Raja. For the next 10 days, it becomes the heart of Mumbai celebrations, drawing devotees and visitors from across India and abroad. Devotees also thronged at the famous Siddhivinayak temple in Mumbai from early morning to offer prayers and perform darshan along with their loved ones on the occasion of Ganesh Chaturthi. The festival lasts, as I mentioned, 10 days and is marked by prayers, aartis and community celebrations, culminating in the Visarjan, where idols are immersed in water amid chants and music. This year, Ganesh Visarjan will take place next Saturday, that's the 6th of September. President and Prime Minister of India have extended their greetings to all Indians residing in the country and abroad on Ganesh Chaturthi. And Ganesh Chaturthi in Nepal also saw thousands of devotees honoring Lord Ganesh with prayers and rituals at major temples. All the prominent Ganesh temples in the Kathmandu Valley, including Ashok Vinayak, Chandra Vinayak, Surya Vinayak, Kamal Vinayak and Kamaradi Ganesh temple, had a long queue of devotees waiting for their turn to enter the Garbhagriha or the Sanctum Sanctorum for offering puja. And the Union Cabinet on Wednesday approved a submission of a bid to host the Commonwealth Games 2030 in Ahmedabad, Gujarat. The decision also includes approval for signing the host collaboration agreement and providing grant and aid to the Gujarat government in the bid, if the bid is successful. If awarded, Ahmedabad has been proposed as the host city, offering world-class stadiums, cutting-edge training facilities and a strong sporting culture. The city is home to the Narendra Modi Stadium, the largest cricket stadium in the world, which has already proven its capability by successfully hosting the 2023 ICC Cricket World Cup final. The 2030 Games are expected to see participation from 72 countries, with thousands of athletes, coaches, technical officials, media personnel and tourists arriving in India. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. Just scan the QR code on the screen to download the app now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.